Hey, what's up, YouTube? Anyone joining me from Facebook or Instagram? My name is Ryan Sage, and I'm here to present an hour of information related to the sort of untold story of tobacco addiction. So, what I've been learning over the last few months is that the essential vitamin B3 is a direct relative of nicotine, which is considered the most addictive part of tobacco. So this changes everything because now we can equate the craving for tobacco with something that is actually a positive signal that's coming from our body. I do have a new microphone, so I'm just going to do what I can to make sure that the audio is coming through clear. Anyone in the chat, just let me know if you can hear me. It should be fine. So this talk is going to just go over some of the specifics about what B3 is and how it affects our body, and my own experience with tobacco consumption and addiction, some of the more fine details about how tobacco can be used, and also the symptoms of B3 deficiency. Um, Again, B3 is an essential vitamin, so we're supposed to be getting it at an adequate dosage somehow, and it is only available in really small amounts in our food. And this is a problem because even in supplements, what most people are going to gravitate towards is a B complex, which contains a whole spectrum of B vitamins. But the problem with a B complex in terms of this whole tobacco addiction thing is a B complex will only use a very small amount of B3 because the signifier of a truly adequate dose of B3, the signifier is it mimics an allergic reaction. Your skin will turn red. Your entire system is flushing. What's happening is your blood vessels are reaching their limit. That's what the B3 stimulates. It stimulates a full expression, all of your blood vessels just being pushed to their max. And this causes the skin to go red, some pretty profuse sweating, and this only lasts 5 or 10 minutes. However, it does signify that an adequate dose has been achieved. So essentially, B3 can be taken in 100 milligram increments, and you can slowly work your way up to find out what your ideal dose is. Now, a B3 complex will only have a very small amount, again, because if that is triggered, it can really turn people off from that particular brand. Um, and what I've noticed taking B3 is brain fog totally disappears. There's an extreme mental clarity and just feeling physically better. And what B3 is purported to do is it improves cognitive function, memory, work capacity, alertness, and stress relief. This is why people smoke tobacco to begin with. They're feeling that stress relief. And again, the key here is we're transforming the assumption of why we're having these cravings. Um, am someone who smoked tobacco earlier in my life, quite regularly, and um, we're going to talk about the benefits of finding natural tobacco later on. But I was just smoking your average cigarettes, which have a lot of preservatives, formaldehyde, and different chemicals. And this even opens up the argument that you're not even addicted to the nicotine or tobacco in the first place. It's the thousands of added chemicals and preservatives that is that your body or your mind or your internal process is becoming used to. And that's why we experience agitation when we don't have tobacco. And so I smoked just your average cigarettes for several years, sometimes up to a pack a day. And this was when I was still in high school. So um, again, it's accessible to anyone. Tobacco is one of the most widely used substances that is harmful. And the good thing is, vaping or vaporizing is becoming very popular. But unfortunately, what I found out is the average fluid that people are filling that their vaporizers with, it's actually like a gasoline derivative. So I wouldn't want to be breathing that in. You can get vegetable glycerin compounds. You can get really good clean CBD oil made from vegetable glycerins, and that's what I would recommend if you want to be um, breathing in something through the lungs. But I think a lot of people have the assumption that vaping is just water vapor. It's definitely not. It's a petroleum-based derivative. I'm not sure of the exact name, but it's definitely not just water vapor. So the reason that I'm doing this talk is just to give you an outline about the connection with B3, this essential vitamin, because as I discovered B3, it brought it all together. It validated that these cravings for tobacco were not purely based on addiction to tobacco, that it was actually my body signaling that I needed something. And the relief of taking a good dose of B3 is the same relief that you would get from smoking in a way. For me personally, I have really um, no desire for tobacco smoke at all once I consumed the B3. And I had let go of tobacco for several months beforehand, but it was really, really helpful to have this knowledge and to have the B3. It's also marketed as niacin and nicotinic acid. And that name right there just lets you know this is a direct relative of nicotine. And once you find out the dosage that you need, you can slightly reduce it so you don't actually feel the flushing, your skin doesn't turn red. I took that pre-threshold dose before this talk, about 10 minutes before. So if I had taken a little bit more, I would be experiencing a flush right now. But instead, what I'm experiencing is just a little bit more refined mental state and just feeling a little bit more present in my body. And if you feel that that's what smoking tobacco gives you, I would highly recommend you experiment with niacin B3 supplement, because you're probably going to get identical relief and you can keep your lungs clean and you don't have to worry about polluting yourself. Just pulling up an article here that explains more about the B3 deficiency and some of the symptoms linked with it. And this is really, as I began to research this, I began to see how serious this is, because um, it is expected that the majority of humanity has a B3 deficiency because it's really not available in adequate amounts in our food. And again, it's an essential vitamin. So I was able to totally let go of commercial cigarettes many years ago, but I still found myself craving just a small amount of tobacco every few days. But my sense of smell and my lung capacity and even my sense of taste were all paying the price for this. And to learn that this wasn't simply a craving for a momentary fulfillment, that it was actually a biological cry from my body. This really changed everything. And if anyone out there is listening and is struggling with tobacco addiction, just know that this vitamin can change everything. It can help you quit smoking right away. And it doesn't tax the body because you're still getting that replenishment, you're getting that calming, you're getting that B3, that nicotinic acid. So you're getting a very similar um, compound into your body. So for me, I don't feel like anything is missing once I take the B3. And it's only very, very small amounts that is needed. Some people incrementally increase the dose and they enjoy the feeling of the flush, but it can be quite intense. So um, just be careful. Start with 100 milligrams and work your way up. And it's probably going to be triggered up in the area of 200 to 250 milligrams. Uh, but it also depends if you've had a good meal, if you've been sleeping well and you're not under stress, you can tolerate more. But if you're a sensitive individual and it's on an empty stomach, a very small amount can trigger it. Um, so just pulling up the symptoms of a deficiency here. Okay, so just bear with me. Um, so there is some mention here about Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, and cognitive dysfunction being related to B3 deficiency. So this is a very, very important thing for us to understand. There was a different article I had up. I am having trouble finding it, so I'm just going to go off of memory of what I was reading. Um, Aside from brain fog and anxiety, B3 deficiency is shown to manifest through serious mental disorders, serious depression, and the feeling of unmanageable stress. So, again, these are some reasons why tobacco is so soothing for some people. The nicotine is soothing that on some level, but the pollution that your lungs are taking on for that relief is simply not worth it. Um, it just amazed me to discover the connection between an essential vitamin and something that's apparently something we should never use at all. I think that's fascinating. So, some ways that we can use tobacco in a healthy way. First of all, any type of packaged, chemically preserved tobacco is really useless for anyone to be ingesting. Um, there are ways to find organic, untreated tobacco, and this type of tobacco can be prepared as a tea, a very weak tea, and simply sipping on a very weak tobacco tea is a beautiful way to take in the medicine of the tobacco, which is antibacterial, and the nicotine content will give you some of the relief and benefits of the B3. So the important thing is to source something that hasn't been chemically treated, something that's been grown organically. And the antibacterial qualities actually make a light tea an ideal nasal rinse. It disinfects the sinus. I've wiped colds out at their early states just with one treatment, using it like how you would use a neti pot. That is highly recommended because we breathe in so much, and it has benefited me so immensely to stay on top of purifying the sinuses, the nasal passageways, even the ear canal. Um, so if you are someone who has a connection to tobacco, um, this isn't a a claim that you should never ingest it in any way whatsoever. If you can find a pure source, you can use it in a liquid form, in a very weak tea. There are some traditions that make stronger reductions, and this has been shown to be quite dangerous, so I wouldn't recommend that. But you can still get a lot of the relief and medicinal benefits of tobacco by preparing it as a tea. And that's just, again, to sip on lightly as an antibacterial tonic, or to take through the nasal passageway how you would use a neti pot. And this just reminds us that the plant tobacco is it's not harmful. It's a healing plant, and we can use it in a healing way. Um, Unfortunately, these chemical cigarettes have been marketed to us in this just terrible format of essentially chemically soaked tobacco. So it's even safe to say that you're not even addicted to the tobacco, it's all of these other chemicals. But underneath all of that, you'll still be reaching for that B3, because it is an essential vitamin. So just knowing that um, that mental illness can be linked to a B3 deficiency, um, that is absolutely um, that's absolutely a game changer, because tobacco use has always been equated with stress management, and yeah, you'll see people who are struggling. It's just it's really easy to draw that connection to stress and mental illness, and the smoking of tobacco. So we just need to remember that B3, it's necessary for our diet, and it's not available in our food. So if you're experiencing any difficulties with cognitive function, memory, alertness, stress, and you already smoke tobacco, it's essential that you try a an effective dose of B3, and that means taking it incrementally until you feel the skin flush, because this is the sign that your blood vessels are now being stimulated to their fullest. And what this does is it allows all of the blood vessels in your body to reach their apex. And this improves all of the circulation for all of your tissue and organs, and it essentially amplifies your body's ability to function on a very, very core level. It's actually quite similar to how cold therapy, cold immersion therapy works. When you immerse yourself in cold temperatures, the minute endings of your nerves are stimulated to their absolute limit. And that's why you feel tingling when you are experiencing extreme cold, or if you've ever done um, the cold immersion therapy. Um, so the cold immersion is pushing your nerves to their absolute limit, and what that does is it actually creates a microscopic growth beyond your current nervous system's limit. You sort of just push beyond the current threshold where your nervous system is operating. You just get like 1 micron beyond that. And if you're doing that regularly, you're going to be strengthened at your highest level of performance. So that's the nerve endings, the actual electrical nervous system you have going on. What B3 is doing is a similar thing with your blood supply. So it's pushing all of your vessels, your blood vessels, just a micro measurement beyond their regular functioning. And that's allowing the blood supply to be just that much more effective at its duty to circulate blood to all of your organs and every part of your body. And this very effectively improves clarity of mind, bodily awareness, and just a feeling of peace. Um, so really the biggest concept here that I feel is just so important for anyone using tobacco to understand is the cravings you're having are not arbitrary. They are not simply related to the desire for tobacco. It's your body calling out for a replenishment of an essential vitamin. So this information is just going to be helping so many people, because if for example, a young person um, who is going through stress and mental instability in their teen years, a lot of them do gravitate towards tobacco. And if parents can catch this, if you feel that the habits of your child are troubling you, and you're noticing that they are choosing to begin smoking, this no longer needs to be looked at as a threat, as a problem, as simply a an immature and an act of self harm. It can be looked at as a a blessing, as a communication um, to you as the parent that there is a vitamin deficiency at hand, and then we can start introducing B3 therapy to people who would otherwise just self-medicate with tobacco, and this isn't going to be able to treat the mental issues, the depression, the fatigue, the cognitive dysfunction, because The nicotine in the chemical tobacco, it simply becomes, it's competing with pollutants. So you're doing twice as much harm as you're doing good. So you're taking one step forward and about four steps backwards. So with this knowledge, we can approach mental illness from a truly intelligent place of um, making this really um, beautiful connection to addiction, mental health, and what our body knows that it requires to function properly. So a few more symptoms of B3 deficiency: apathy, depression, which I already mentioned, and it's so crucial. Like these symptoms of depression and apathy, cognitive dysfunction, if that's happening at a young age and the person is gravitating towards tobacco, towards smoking tobacco, this can just be so easily misinterpreted as just blatant self-harm. So now that we know that this is a vitamin deficiency, this is really going to change everything. So that is pretty much all of the information I have to share. Um, so just for anyone who's still watching, maybe if you tuned in late, um, I'm just going to go over some of the key points once again before I say goodbye. Um, from what I know so far, the dietary sources, like what we can actually find in our food supply as far as B3, it's far too minimal to receive a therapeutic dose. Once you've utilized B3, you can receive what you need in a balanced diet. Um, but in terms of like treating the fatigue or cognitive dysfunction or depression, it's just really crucial that you find the supplement niacin or B3. It's the same thing, and it's really inexpensive. I was able to get probably 80 to 100 tablets, and they were strong ones for like $10. It's very inexpensive, and again, it's an essential vitamin. So the main points here are, it's now being uncovered that tobacco addiction, which is primarily acknowledged as a nicotine addiction, is actually B3 deficiency. This is an essential B vitamin, which is, as far as I can tell, it's highly unexplored, especially by smokers. And although vaporizing has emerged as a solution, the propylethylene compound that is found in the vast majority of vaping fluids is a petroleum or gasoline derivative. So I personally wouldn't want to be breathing that in, and it strays from the common belief that a vaporizer is simply just water vapor. That's not the case. You can find vegetable glycerin, which would be a lot better for you. And ideally, you could even use CBD, cannabidiol, non psychoactive cannabis extract. And that's going to remind your whole body how to function. The endocannabinoid system is the most widespread receptor in the whole body, and it's our most robust communication network between all organs and all cells. So if you're going to be inhaling anything, ideally it would be vegetable glycerin based CBD oil. Um, the fluids that people are thinking are just water vapor, they aren't. Even though the fluids that people are vaporizing are infinitely less harmful than tobacco smoke, it still isn't what it seems. And what this knowledge about B3 is illuminating is that the craving itself isn't even for tobacco. It's not even for smoke. It's for an essential vitamin that is not found in the food supply in adequate amounts. So when you obtain this knowledge, the next step is to take an adequate dose of B3. And this is going to be about 100 milligrams. And again, the telltale signs is your skin will become hot and red just for a little over 5 minutes, and then you'll start to notice it declining pretty fast. And this is all of your blood vessels exercising themselves or being stimulated past their normal functioning. And this is incredibly good for the brain, for the organs, and just for the whole body in general. Because you're just slightly exceeding your regular apex of blood supply. And this is going to help with circulation, with even with respiratory health. And it's believed that a huge majority of the human population are actually deficient in B3, and the manifestation of the deficiency are all the telltale signs of mental illness. So it's pretty easy to see the connection between cigarette smoking and mental illness or stress. And just if you weren't listening earlier, B3, its chemical name is nicotinic acid. And this is a direct relative of nicotine, the addictive component of tobacco. So the symptoms of deficiency are all of the telltale signs of mental illness. And it's just so important for people who either know loved ones or friends with who are struggling with their mental health. It's just so important to know that this powerful vitamin supplement, which is essential to all of us, has been sort of shrouded by the addiction towards tobacco. And as we can clear this up, we're going to be able to help a lot of people achieve clarity of mind and balance in their lives. There are very few supplements that have had this purifying effect on me. Upon taking it, there's just a huge wave of just calmness, and focus improves. Any brain fog or fatigue really is minimized. And again, just knowing that the addiction or the craving for tobacco isn't about the classic addiction to the substance. It is proven that the compound that is B3 is a direct relative of nicotine. So considering the deficiency runs through the entire population. Um, Tobacco addiction is not what it seems. And if it's so closely bonded with mental illness, it's just essential that we have this become common knowledge. So, if you're interested in this information, simply take your time to Google B3 deficiency, or if you're ready to start the ingesting of the supplement, just go to your local health food store. Anywhere that you would get vitamin C, you can find B3. It's also marketed as niacin. And yeah, this is really important information for anyone who is struggling with tobacco addiction. I had many years where I was um, really unhappy with what I was doing to my lungs, and this was minimal tobacco use, just not even an entire cigarette in a day, and sometimes several days of not smoking anything at all. But it's simply not good for the lungs, and to have the knowledge that the craving was truly an innocent one and not one of just blatant addiction. It was calling, my body was calling out for B3. And this is really, it has to be the case for anyone else who feels that they're dependent on tobacco. Um, so I'm gonna leave it at that. The solutions here are really easy to find. Yeah, the information is spreading very widely online. It's really easy to find the resources, and it's a really simple misunderstanding that's been going on. Um, Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.